Welcome to the League. Welcome to the League, a DBNC business talk show where bold ideas meet bottom lines and doing business in Nigeria moves from potential to playbook. I am Coach Linda Oneze, your host. Today we are joined by someone very important who is currently at the frontier of cross-border payment and digital finance in Africa. So today we'll be going into discussing how businesses can access finance and how you can also win in a tight economy. So join me as I make welcome Dr. Austin Okpagu, the country director of Verto.
Thank you, Linda, for that introduction. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. It's a pleasure to have you here again. I know the last time we had an official meet was at the conference where you were a speaker at the Doing Business in Nigeria Conference 2025.
Right.
So it's a pleasure to have you. I'm accepting to be here today.
Double pleasure to be here as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So there's a lot of conversations around cash being king. Actually, one of the speakers at the conference did mention, he alluded to that. And we also know that without capital, really, running a business in Nigeria can be difficult. Okay, so Dr. Austin, my first question to you would be, what patterns have you seen in how people access finance, especially SMEs, in moments of pressure?
Thanks, Linda, for that question. I think that it's a spot-on question on so many fronts, because I've kind of been in the forefront of when businesses, especially SMEs, are in distress. And three things that they basically, the pattern shows three different things. First is the speed, right? Flexibility, and then transparency. Those are the three key things that SMEs will always put at the forefront whenever they want to access finance, especially in moments of pressure. In terms of flexibility, and this is where fintech are winning. The banks, or the brick and mortar banks, or the legacy banks, they're not quite flexible. And for an SME, especially in times of pressure, it's either they want to pay an invoice and they want to pay it now. The commercial banks are unable to fulfill that. And so the SMEs get disadvantaged. Another thing is terms of speed. They want it now. And this is where fintechs are winning. Today, you look at a lot of digital finances, fintechs going into offering embedded finance, where all they need to know is what is the volume of transactions you're doing in their platform. If you're an e-commerce seller, and they look at, okay, in the last 6 months, what have you done? And they can give you on-the-spot assessments and give you finance. Another thing is the transparency. SMEs, most of the time, when it comes to pressure, are there hidden fees? Are there interests that are not well articulated, right? So those are some of the pressures. And for a lot of the time, a lot of SMEs have actually fallen into the trap or have been unable to fulfill or grow their businesses because of those three factors. And so what happens most of the time is you just realize that for some of them, they can decide to go with companies that are transparent. And that's why today you can apply for loan in under 5 minutes, you could be approved.
That's amazing.
Without collateral. So I'm sure when you go into other details, we can speak about some of the issues that kind of militate against some of the SMEs.
That's quite interesting. So let's talk about some of the work you're doing at Verto, right? How is Verto enabling this access? That's on one hand, and also how are you able to manage risk of lenders? No, but I say lenders, no borrowers in this case. How do you manage risk?
Just to be clear, Verto, essentially, we are a cross-border payment company. We're not a lending company, just to be sure.
Okay.
However, the pattern is similar because we do a lot with businesses in emerging markets that want to scale beyond borders. Most of the time, what happens is if you are a business that operates in Nigeria, how do you scale beyond Nigeria? And most of the time, you would need finance. Most of the things that we've seen based on our business model is to look at advanced liquidity, right? Invoice financing in those cases, right? At Verto, we look at so many things. Nobody's going to be asking you for collateral because your data within our platform is your collateral, right? And most of the time, we looked at businesses that have been doing transaction with us for a while. Okay, you don't expect anyone to just show up today, sign up today, and then request for loan or whatnot, advanced liquidity, and you just provide that. No, that's not how it works. We'll just simply leverage on your data, your transaction data, and look at the pattern to decide, are you worthy of being given advanced liquidity without paper trails or physical paper trails? Because we are cross-border, and so we deal with businesses that, for example, do not have physical offices in specific countries. And because we're very heavy in emerging markets, we see firsthand those issues around being able to access finance, right? But most of the time, the pattern is much more higher in SMEs. And because SMEs naturally are disadvantaged by, to a large extent, the fact that most of these businesses are sole proprietors. They're not limited liability, right? And because of that, the access to finance is very limited. But however, you've seen a lot of digital platforms or fintechs being able to solve for that. And hopefully by August or September, open banking will open up more opportunity, because with open banking, essentially what you're saying is, with the phone number, with a single account number, you can access information about any individual across all the financial institutions in the country. So hopefully that can unlock a lot more opportunity as we move along.
That's interesting, But I'm wondering, do you have the same approach for nano and the micro businesses as well?
Not exactly, because we are predominantly B2B, business. And so we don't do a lot of nano, I should say. But essentially what we help those kind of businesses do is to be able to access the expense management solution that allow them to do businesses with about 50 different currencies in over 180 countries with a simple multi-currency card. So the multi-currency card allows you to do transactions. I mean, you have Nigeria and NGN, right? Nigerian Naira. So you want to pay someone in China. You want to shop for items in euros. You don't have to convert your Naira to multiple currencies to do that. That can happen with a single card. So you can just simply shop and pay your suppliers, or even collect money. If you want to collect money into the country as a business, as a small business, most of the time you don't want to open a DOM account, you don't want to fill in, you don't want to go and bring your grandmom's date of birth certificate before your account can be opened and all of that. And so that kind of helps platform like Verto to kind of simplify the onboarding, which is one of the things that is difficult for SMEs or even nano businesses, like you mentioned, to become financially included.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that brings me to the next question on innovation. So how have you been able to balance innovation with the realities of regulation? And what advice would you give young founders trying to do the same?
So, because we are highly regulated, where I work at Verto, first is that because we're regulated in multiple jurisdictions, not just Nigeria, right? It's so complicated. And with most times, when we onboard businesses in emerging markets, one of the biggest problems or challenges that we've noticed is them being able to factor in a regulation or compliance into their system. And because of that, there are a lot of loopholes. There's anti-money laundering laws, there is terrorism financing and all of that. But what happens is that a lot of these businesses in the emerging market don't factor that into the playbook when they're building the business, right? So I would say that compliance should be at the forefront when building your business from day one. It's not optional. We've seen businesses that, because they want to move really fast, they want to scale really fast, and they ignore regulation or compliance. It's going to come back and bite you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
They'll still chase you at some point.
It will.
The relevant agencies will chase you, when it's time. So.
Whether it's consumer protection,
absolutely,
you have to think about that. Whether it's having the right license, you have to think about that. Whether it's ensuring that you have the right compliance team in place, especially if you're a regulated business, the CBN is coming for you. Security and Exchange Commission is coming for you. Consumer Protection Council is coming for you, right? So you can never build a sustainable business if you do not ensure that compliance is the bedrock of of your business model.
Of your business model.
Yeah.
Very, very important insight or advice you've just given to the businesses and to the audience who are listening in. So thank you for that. What would you say are the common misconceptions that Nigerian businesses have as regards accessing finance? And how is Verto actively working to change this perception?
Very good question, Ryan. So one of the misconceptions a lot of the time is you need someone in the bank or the CBN governor have to be your grandfather before you can access finance, right? It's a myth, and rightly so, because we operate in an environment that is low trust. Because of low trust, people don't trust the system, and people don't trust on the authenticity, right, of the processes that leads to, accessing finance, right? And that could be true. That could be wrong as well.
Sometimes they don't even trust the people.
Exactly.
Not just the process.
Yes. And because if you look at accessing loans in the bank, most of the time the banks will require a couple of details from you. Oftentimes they will need you to provide all your licenses or whatnot, right? And maybe your bank statement. But there are a lot of SMEs, especially in Nigeria, a place like Nigeria, that are completely disadvantaged, that have low access to finance. They don't keep records, and record keeping is one of the biggest problems. And most of the time, because of that misconception, right, it becomes very difficult for them to even, believe that they can ever get a loan. I'm sure there are a lot of foundations now, there are international NGOs and even local NGOs that are also supporting businesses, SMEs, to be able to access liquidity. It could be working capital. And that things are changing. But however, if you look at how many, I'm not sure of the number now, but there are millions and millions of SMEs that today, all they need, it's just maybe 50,000 naira. And they could do a bit of magic in their business. But you know why they will never ever get to the, go to the commercial banks to be able to approach them for loan? I don't know anybody there. And that's the biggest problem.
So information is key as well.
Information is key. And how simple is that information as well? It's one thing to have information, and access to that information is also key as well. If you look at a couple of government programs or events or programs that aim to empower SMEs to access loans, most times stops in big cities, in Lagos, Abuja, or major cities. But how about that mom and pop shop that has a turnover of about 1 million, 2 million every month, every year, that nobody knew about? I think it was just a few days ago, I was reading the news that a lady in Surulere did a turnover of about 2-point-something billion naira selling food on an e-commerce platform. Just imagine how many Nigerian businesses could have scaled.
Yeah, if they had the opportunity.
They have the opportunity, and that's just
information as well.
Exactly, and then it's technology. Because why would somebody, do over 2 billion naira? It's not the amount of people that come to our place to buy. It's the fact that e-commerce have enabled that. So you can be in Surulere or you be in Lekki and order for Hamala, and it can be delivered to you. So I think it's beyond that knowledge, also the access to technology and the willingness to be able to, to leverage on those.
Just because technology is an enabler when it comes to running a business and making things easy for your consumers, a lot of people are not adopting tech. So everything now is
tech.
It's a good trend, but as long as you are actually effectively utilizing technology to enable access to your products and services, then great. But otherwise, it just remains a trend.
I agree. Tech is a trend. AI is a trend. In fact, AI is trendier than anything as such, right?
Absolutely.
But the truth is, like you rightly said, tech is an enabler, and more so in emerging markets like Nigeria. Tech cannot solve everything, but we've seen the scalability of businesses that have leverage on tech, right? And also, it means that it's a 1,000,001 businesses that do not need tech to scale, and we know them, right? But the question is, what exactly are we doing to enable those businesses to scale without necessarily depending on tech to do so?
Because tech for some businesses might be expensive, depending on the size.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was speaking to a Mirua guy. I'm sure someone, and I just realized that he owns 3 businesses. So he charges his phones. He has a phone charging spot, and then he sells water, right? Supplies water to people. And I got curious and I asked him a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him, how much do you generate in a month? You will be amazed. He told me that he generates an average of 3 to 4 million.
That's interesting.
Right. And why? He's got about 10 to 15 sub-suppliers of the water in trucks that supply to businesses that don't have access to pipe-borne water. And he's got a center where people come to charge their devices because there's no power, right? So he's leveraging solar and all of that to charge mobile devices. Do you think that guy will go to the bank and will access loan? You know why? He can't, because there's no record.
There's no record.
Right, there's no record, and the banks don't look at those kind of people. But those are people really empowering other people, micro businesses. And I asked him how, and he said, look, because I bring those people from the north. It's an Almajiri, an ex-Almajiri, I should say, right? But he's kind of belted.
What does that mean?
Yeah, he used to be.
Who do not know.
Yeah, he used to be. So there's these Almajiri folks that usually you see them with plates and move around and then beg for food and stuff like that. And then he decided to, you know what? This is not how I want to live. So he became a security from a gate man to starting a small, shop where people just come and buy all those cosmetics, cosmetics, sweet, Milo and all sort of thing, biscuits and all that. And then from then he built.
That's interesting. Yeah. That's from grass to grace story. No matter how small, it's significant. There has been talks about an imbalance as regards access to finance. When we're talking about women, it feels like some people might disagree, but it feels like men tend to have better advantage when accessing finance over women. In fact, I was recently at a conference and someone asked a question, and the insight she gave was quite interesting. She said at business, pitches, that men tend to be asked, progress questions. And women tend to be asked questions that make them defend what they're selling. She said defensive question. I mean, those were her words. So in your opinion, what is Verto doing to level the playing field?
I think it's a very concerning question, right? Very recently, we launched a program to empower startups. And deliberately, obviously, internally, we said, look, we want the proportion of applications, right, to be gender balanced, but more so from, again, we are a very gender balanced company, right? And we do not think that you need to be a male or a female to be able to access a system, completely meritocratic, setup, right? But however, we just realized, we looked at the numbers. It's an open, so we're saying apply and get funded, and access up to $10,000. And we looked at the number and just realized that, look, the percentage of women-owned businesses that have applied, it's less than 2%.
Wow.
And so the question is this information accessible to everybody? Yes. So what is really, so the question we really need to be asking ourselves is, what is holding women back from accessing opportunities? Not more so about, because the truth is this: opportunities everywhere, right? But the truth is, I've met very, very smart women, ladies, that to a large extent feel that they're disadvantaged from the get-go. And maybe because they feel that, when they reach out, you want to take advantage of them. Right? And society, especially in this part of the world, is not super nice, fair to the gender, right? And so the institutions, and that's why you look at people have been calling for affirmative action, ensure that there's equity in terms of, okay, set aside 35%, for women to to come into the National Assembly and all of that. But the truth is this, we need to go beyond that to say, how do we truly ensure that women are able to assess the opportunities that is available to everyone else? And the reality is this, we need to, let me just speak, women need to put themselves out there and grab that opportunity. I have seen a lot of women that are blazing the trail. If you look at the banking sector in Nigeria today, most of the CEOs, right, of the group are women. It wasn't like that. I mean, this wasn't possible 10 years, 20 years ago. But today, I think if you look at the big banks, not just,
a lot of organizations are becoming more intentional. Including more women.
Absolutely. And I think, but beyond, beyond appointment, people need to, because look, women care for things. And I've seen my mom, for example, nurture and grow a business. And I've seen how committed and how profitable that business is. Because it's like when you empower women, it's like you're empowering the nation, right?
Absolutely.
And so, but the question is, the problem is
I agree with you. I'm a woman, so.
Exactly. So, but the truth is, how many women are actually winning? And there's so many reasons. It could be religion. It could be, work.
Yeah, it could also be that a lot, or not a lot, some women are risk averse.
Right.
It just could be that. And it could also be, just not having the right information. That literacy as well is key. So yeah, as a result of different things. And to your point at
Verto, what we do to empower women basically is we build a platform that empowers everybody, right? And we're also very keen, and that's why we're very deliberate on the kind of programs that we organize and the kind of empowerment programs that we organized. Like the Verto startup fund that we're doing, we are actively looking for women startups or women businesses to apply.
Oh, right? Great.
Yes, and I think we probably need to spend a bit more time and say, you know what, if you're a woman, please you need to apply. But women need to move away from that pity party and say, look, we are equal. We can do this. We can apply for opportunities.
I think they have moved away from that. I think there's so many empowered women out there right now. They're just looking for someone to take a chance
on them.
On them, yes. But back to your point, the Verto Startup Fund is quite interesting. So how can our listeners, how can they access the Verto Startup Fund?
Right, so we have that available on our website.
Okay.
So when you go there, this is where you can access up to $10,000, to fund your business, right? And this is not limited to certain businesses. It's a competitive, obviously, application process, right? And it's just an opportunity for you to scale your business beyond borders, and that's what we stand for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, before I ask you the last question, I'll just throw in one more question if you don't mind.
Sure.
And you've led strategy and operations at some of the biggest names in Africa. In African fintech, I would say. So looking back, what's one defining mindset that helped you keep moving forward? When access to capital proved difficult.
Right. So thing is, a very interesting thing is I've spent a bit of my time. I'm not very old, so I wouldn't say I've spent 20, 30 years, right? But the truth is, for all the companies I've worked, they are startups. Spent some time with Paga, about 5 years, Opay and Jumia, and
you must be very tough because you build resilience when you actually work with startups.
Absolutely. And because of my access to the founders of those companies, right? I've learned one thing that seems to be the same across all the startups I've worked, and that's why most of these startups are still existing today. And one of the things is the resilience is the fact that they are able to pivot very fast. Innovation, there's no such thing as first mover advantage, right? First mover advantage could be a cost, right? Because you just pave the way, and some new guys in the block will just show up, some 18-year-old. Smart guys will just show up and build something better, right? And I think there is a constant innovation that these founders have in mind. It's being able to ensure when to raise money, right? And it's the speed of execution. On another hand, right? Because I've seen a lot of these companies executing super fast, and when you execute super fast, then you have traction to show. And because all these companies are equity backed company, right? They're capital, they're funded by global investment companies, right? And so folks are beginning to look at, okay, what are the metrics that makes more sense? Is it how many users you have? What is the revenue generate every year? But that is changing now. The playbook has changed. It's more about profitability. Are you profitable? Right? And so there's a race to bottom. They say, you know what, we want to be profitable. We have 5 million users. That's nice and okay, but things are moving beyond that. It's not about vanity metrics anymore. It's about, are you profitable? If we decide to move our money out, can you sustain your business? So it's about profitability now. But I think that's the pattern. I work in a company that is profitable. You probably will not hear the boss and all that.
And you say that with your full chest.
Yes.
You said it with so much pride.
Yeah, because it's about ruthless execution and being very frugal.
Okay.
Managing resources is very key, right? It's not the fact that you raise $1 million and then you spend all the money on marketing, right? You spend the money where it won't add to the bottom line, right? It's way more than that. I have an opportunity to work with founders that are very, very, very in terms of managing resources is very key. And that's what gives investors the confidence to want to put in more money, because they know you will manage your resources. Not when the money comes in, first thing is you are leaving the country. You are applying to Canada and you're relocating, and your business is here. But just relocate. We've seen that.
Yes.
Founders or startup founders just raise $1 million, $2 million, and the next thing is they're out of the country and they allow the business to succeed. That's why businesses are failing, because you're not giving a lot of time. All the companies have worked, the founders reside here. They've spent, even though obviously most of them are multi-citizen. They have citizenship in other countries, but the reality is they've built the businesses. They've spent a lot of time understanding their customers and know their customers.
But there are some founders that are not based here and their businesses are doing well.
Absolutely.
Just,
and it's a
just
process.
to put that in.
Yeah, for sure. And that comes from process, right? The kind of resources that you have. Do you have did you hire the right set of people? What is your culture? Right.
Absolutely.
So if you have, it's not so much about you being being present, right? It's about the time you have and also how focused you are to the business. And I've seen a lot of businesses that are $1 billion or $2 billion companies that the CEOs don't live here. But the thing is, the process, the people, and the tech, and all of that working together to scale.
So process, people, technology.
Right.
Okay, so Dr. Austin, if you're in a room filled with overwhelmed entrepreneurs and you have 120 seconds to just say something to encourage them, what would your words be?
It would be, first, build with purpose and build to solve a problem. Okay, don't be moved away by tech, because tech does not necessarily put food on the table, but just solve the problem, and trust me, you will scale and be very, very, very determined, because the environment we are in is super, super different.
So that's interesting, and thank you so much for that. So let's remember, according to Dr. Austin, you have to build with purpose, and you also need to build to solve a problem. So thank you for joining us, and thank you to our audience for joining us as well. Till we see again, my name is Linda Oneze. Goodbye for now.